All right, so this is the first part of this digital portfolio. This is a short story called "A Heard." Here we have the notebook summary of it, I guess. We're gonna listen to the AI podcast, glazing it essentially. But it's gonna be fun to watch, and the full text should be below. You can access it for free. Yeah, so it's always interesting to see how close they are to getting the kind of deeper elements of it. Let's see the first part here. You can see the summary here. So the text. Yeah, so it is a story about a pair of headphones, and yeah, let's just listen to what I have to say.
Okay. And how they see the world.
Yeah, it's wild.
I mean, talk about a unique perspective, right?
Really gets you thinking about consciousness.
From the very start, I was hooked. Like, these earphones are stuck in an airport shop, right?
Right.
And they're just watching all the humans rushing around.
They call them roamers. It's cute.
It is, and they're like little anthropologists.
You're categorizing them?
By how they look, how they act, even coming up with theories about why roamers do what they do.
And what your own purpose might be. Like, they're convinced they're meant to help the roamers de-stress.
And the way they analyze everything.
That's fascinating.
Like the different roamer body shapes, 3 main ones they've noticed, and all the status symbols.
But it's interesting because their view is so limited, right? They're literally stuck on this rack.
True.
So their ideas about roamer society, like how roamers are all about themselves, not the group. It says more about the earphones and how their worldview is forming than about the roamers.
Exactly. And then things change.
Yeah, so far they think they've got on to the aspect that it is a kind of way of looking at society, which I quite like. They refer to them as like anthropologists, which is quite interesting. I think that's a pretty decent apt description. So far it's not bad, yeah. It makes sense as a summary.
Not the group. It says more about the earphones and how their worldview is forming than about the roamers.
Exactly. And then things change when they get moved to that rotating display.
Oh, yeah.
At first they're excited.
Thinking they'll get picked.
Right. But it's total sensory overload.
This is where the story really digs into how powerful our senses are.
The constant movement, the lights, people picking them up for the first time.
They're all just too much.
And then, bam, they're plugged in.
And suddenly there's sound.
It's like a whole universe opens up. Music, voices.
This whole sonic landscape, they had no idea even existed.
Imagine suddenly having a brand new sense. It'd be amazing and scary at the same time.
For sure. And this changes everything for them.
How they understand the world.
They even start to grasp time and memory.
It's like they see this vast hidden dimension, and then poof.
It's gone.
They're unplugged, back in the case.
It leaves them confused, upset even.
This sudden jump from too much sensation to nothing.
Makes you think about how much we crave things.
And how quickly satisfaction can disappear.
Do you think maybe because they don't fully get the world yet, their desire to connect is like flawed somehow?
That's a really interesting question, and it definitely shapes how they act with the roamers afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
They get resentful, even angry.
At how they're being treated.
Like it's all the roamers' fault.
Their innocence is gone.
And they start observing the roamers again.
But this time,
They're looking for the bad stuff.
picking out flaws.
To prove they were right to be cynical.
And they build up this picture in their head.
Of the perfect roamer.
Someone powerful, dominant.
And they get fixated on being chosen by this ideal roamer.
This shows how dangerous it can be to get stuck on an idea.
Right.
Like, by only wanting this one kind of roamer, they might miss out on connecting with others who'd be great, even if they're different.
Absolutely. It's like their whole purpose is tied to being validated by this specific type of roamer.
Exactly.
And then, almost like it was meant to be, a roamer appears who's exactly their perfect specimen.
It's so tense. The specimen picks them up, looks them over,
But then
rejects them.
it's crushing.
All their hopes.
There is something really uncanny about how you said, "Oh, that's so tense." That's kind of funny. Yeah. I think it feels like they're talking about the headphones, like every headphone as like a plurality, but it is actually in first person. So I think what's missing from their discussion is the fact that there is like a separation between the narrated character and the other headphones that are around them, as well as the roamers, which are the people in the airport, as you might have guessed.
It's just shattered.
Shows how different our desires can be from what actually happens.
Anytime.
And just when they're dealing with this disappointment.
An older man comes along.
Kicks them.
This changes everything.
He's the opposite of what they expected.
Total opposite of the airport chaos.
He takes them to his quiet, organized home.
It's stark. The difference between the airport and the house.
Makes you wonder how this new place will affect them.
Will it change how they see the roamers in the world?
Will they connect with this man in a way they never could have with their perfect specimen?
We'll find out in the next part of our deep dive.
Picking up where we left off, I can't get over how different the air.
That's really weird. So for some reason the AI decided to cut it in half here. That's really odd. Also, one thing I forgot is that when they were talking about the headphones being plugged in for the first time and feeling sensation, it's supposed to be kind of traumatic. So I'm surprised that they actually, because they seem to have portrayed it as like a transcendental kind of idea, which is partly true, but it's almost like a essay kind of scene. It's very like, it's not done in a gentle way or in a way that's supposed to make them feel good, or even though they thought they would. So I don't think they picked up on that, and maybe they'll talk about it later. So I'm interested to see where that goes.
In the world.
Will they connect with this man in a way they never could have with their perfect specimen?
We'll find out in the next part of our deep dive.
Picking up where we left off, I can't get over how different the airport is from that old man's home.
Like night and day.
It's so peaceful, so quiet.
It makes you think about how much that'll affect how the earphones see things.
Right. Will they finally chill out a bit or stay all cynical?
Good question.
And remember how carefully he unpacked his stuff.
Yeah?
Everything had its spot. So deliberate.
It's like a whole other way of living compared to those rushed roamers.
Totally throws their assumptions out the window.
Shows there might be more to the roamers than just rushing around and being efficient.
Like maybe peace and order have their own purpose.
Something the earphones haven't even considered yet.
But even with the old man making this calm space,
They're still kind of stuck in that negative headspace.
the story says they think he's slow, clumsy.
Hoping he'll trip. It's kind of harsh.
Really shows how much that first sound experience messed them up.
Yeah, they're judging him just by looks.
Projecting their own fear and disappointment onto him.
Without actually knowing anything about him.
It's like they're still looking for that perfect roamer from before.
The one who's powerful and in control.
Missing out on other connections they could be making.
Exactly. Because real connection goes beyond just appearances.
And that brings us to this big moment. The old man, even though he seems frail,
Picks up the earphones.
smiles gently and plugs them into his device.
It's both tender and like you're on the edge of your seat.
Will it be another crazy sound explosion like at the airport?
Or will it be different this time?
Shaped by how quiet everything is
Yeah.
and the man himself?
Because remember how freaked out they were before.
Makes you wonder if they're ready for what's coming.
It brings up those questions about trauma and if it can heal.
Can they get past their fear and cynicism to experience sound in a good way again?
Their whole journey has led to this.
Will they finally find that connection and understanding they've been looking for?
Will they open themselves up to the possibility that purpose and fulfillment can come from the most unexpected places?
That's the big question as we go into the last part of our deep dive.
Will this encounter with the old man and the
I just had to stop because that's so funny how they get so philosophical with this story. It's hilarious. I think it's much more yeah, it's just funny seeing that level of analysis on this silly of a story. Not, makes sense, but it's not. It was definitely not my intention when writing it in 2018, I think. So it's kind of funny.
The sounds he plays, old man, and the sounds he plays.
They embrace the stillness and find a new kind of meaning in the world. We've seen these earphones go from wide-eyed observers in that crazy airport to like totally disillusioned after that first sound blast.
Yeah, trying to find meaning and purpose led them to this idea of the perfect roamer, which just set them up for disappointment.
And now they're here with this quiet old man plugged in, waiting.
It's such a powerful moment, full of uncertainty, but also maybe change.
It makes you think, what will he play?
Right. Something that'll make them even more cynical, like proof that the world's just chaos.
Or will he choose something that challenges them, opens them up to a whole new way of experiencing sound?
It's interesting. I keep thinking back to how fascinated they were by the roamers at the start.
Me too, like they were desperate to understand them, categorize them.
Almost like they were looking for connection, a place to belong in all that craziness.
And maybe that's still what they want, even after everything.
Maybe this old man, someone who seems to value quiet and thoughtfulness, will show them a different way to find that connection.
The story ends right there, at that moment of possibility.
It's that open ending that makes you really think, what happens next?
What if he plays classical music?
Oh, imagine those complex harmonies, the melody soaring.
It could be a whole world of beauty and order they never knew existed.
Or maybe he puts on nature sounds,
Like the wind in the leaves,
the ocean waves,
birds singing.
sounds that make you feel peaceful, connected to everything.
Such a contrast to that airport noise.
It'd be like a reset for their senses, a chance to experience things fresh.
It reminds me how much our own experiences shape how we see things.
We all have our biases, our expectations.
Since sometimes it takes something totally unexpected, something that shakes us up, to change those.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from this story.
That we're always growing, always learning, changing.
Our understanding of ourselves, the world around us, it's never fixed.
It's shaped by what we go through, who we meet, the sounds we hear.
Exactly.
So as you go about your day, really listen.
To the world around you.
Pay attention to the little details of sound.
How they make you feel, the memories they bring back.
Be open to being surprised, to having your ideas challenged.
And remember, even the most unexpected things can teach us the most.
Keep an open mind, embrace the quiet, and you might just discover a whole new way to experience the beauty and wonder of the world.
I love it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you some.
Okay, so it definitely messed up there, but it's so funny how they always try to bring it back to some kind of revelation at the end, bring it back to some takeaway, which is, oh my god, so funny. But yeah, I'm surprised that it is it's a fairly short story. I think the language is pretty easy to understand, so I'm not super surprised that they got the main themes of it. But yeah, it sounds. I think it. The question is, does it sound? Does it make it sound better than I think it is? I think that's my question for myself, and I think it makes it sound way more philosophical than it actually is, and that actually comes across for sure. I don't think it's anywhere near that deep at all. I think it's more of a fun story, and the premise is so absurd that I think it's hard to enter that philosophical mindset, to be honest. But yeah, there we go. That's the AI podcast review of that story, and you can read it for free on the Patreon for the moment. And we'll be back with part 2 of 39.